All right, everyone. We start off today wishing all clankers and clankettes a happy 4th of July. Go get some snacks, perhaps a carbonated soda. Some of you will get that movie reference, by the way. 4th of July is a great day. It's a day of explosions. Those are cool. Barbecue and shit like that. That's always relevant to my interests, trust me. I have one thing. I was always more of a hot dog person. Usually you have hot dogs, steaks, chicken wings, hamburgers. I always chose the hot dogs. I still do. I know that it's more of the kid choice, but even as an adult, it's all about the fucking hot dogs, as long as they're reasonably well made. And yes, I put ketchup on my hot dogs. You are a heathen if you don't. In fact, you're out of the Clanker Club. I'm just joking. You can take your hot dogs any way you want, but it's trust me, it's delicious. I wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of patriotism, though, and the 4th of July in general. Of course, our nation is about to turn 250 years old. This makes it a relatively youthful nation by most accounts. Kind of, sort of. If you look at geopolitics, it becomes a little bit more messy, but generally speaking, as a continuous entity, ours is a fairly young country. That being said, patriotism in the sense of the United States, I define as supporting the civic understructure on which our country was founded. This is something that is often lost on the American public, which is sad, and it's almost always lost on American politicians. Only thing saving us from outright tyranny is their tendency to backstab and destroy one another and screw with one another's plans. Sort of like Dr. Claw or something like that, I suppose. Uh, I'll get you next time. It's basically the way that it works. The United States was founded on the fundamental principle of liberty. It was founded to get away from the old world model. And by the way, there's a linguistic transmogrification of the term New World Order for meaning, hey, it's the American order, so we're not going to have tyrants and shit like that, to something a bit more sinister, basically globalism. Herbert Walker Bush uttered that phrase, and since then, people have noticed that as things have degraded over time, that term is still in colloquial parlance. Originally, it did not mean globalism. It meant effectively, ironically, America first, actually, which is very, very strange. I see positive developments for the United States over the coming years. We're looking into, for example, attempting to requisition the Panama Canal, which never should have been sold in the first place. This would be highly advantageous. The revamping of the military, more space exploration, all sorts of wonderful things, actually. More tax relief, for example, with the big, beautiful bill, which is not necessarily beautiful, but it's sort of like the girl next door at this point, because certain things that were very good in it were parsed out. So, it's the plain Jane bill, I would say at this point, but it's tolerable, and it was must pass effectively, so there's not much we can do about it. I found it funny how Vance had to cast a tie-breaking vote in the Senate after several Republican senators defected. That was amusing, and did end up clearing the House, so it now goes to Trump's desk, and it's been, it's codified into law now. I see mainly positive things for the nation over the coming era. I think that generally speaking, if things continue moving in the generally positive direction they currently are, that then you will have another populistic administration, and that we've sort of entered a new era of politics, much like Bush-Obama ushered in the era of post-neoliberalism, which, relapsed with Joe Biden to an extent, and would have relapsed with Romney even if he had won, because he's useless. Trump, I think, represents the first step towards a much more positive change. I think that our nation has not yet seen its peak, actually. Some people talk about the American empire and they say, well, the United States was founded 250 years ago. The average age of an empire is only 200 years. We're overdue for a collapse. We're going to go Byzantine mode or have, another civil war or something. I would argue the United States was not technically an empire, and it is, until the sailing of the Great White Navy. This is the early 20th century. It wasn't really until then that we became empire mode. So I think we've got another near century in us before we have any imminent signs of collapse. You can't really argue that the United States in 1820 was an empire. Was it a major trading nation? Yeah. Did it have a navy? Did it have, for that era at least, proper infrastructure? Yeah, it had all the trappings. The antebellum period, other than the slavery debate, generally speaking, must have been pretty great. If you were a slave, it probably was a little bit less great. But the United States can't really be argued to have been an empire at least until after the Civil War, and I would argue until roughly the World War One period. Great White Navy, Spanish Civil War, World War One, generally that era. You could even make the debate that technically the United States was not an empire until after World War Two. If you use that metric, of course, well, then we've got more than a century to go, even according to the standard empirical timeline. And I believe that one of those two is likely to be the case. We are a nation that has problems. But at the moment, we're not really a nation in decline, so to speak, because those problems are capable of being addressed. Also, you've got the nuclear question. Of course, in the post-nuclear era, it's going to be a little bit different than maybe 100 years ago. It's a little bit, it's not exactly similar. Also, technology has changed, civics have changed, everything else has changed. Certainly, the degree of human communication and the methodology by which they communicate has changed as well. So it's sort of an apples to oranges comparison. It's like saying, well, they're both fruits. Yeah, but an apple is not an orange. Try crossbreeding them and see what happens. I don't think it's going to work so well. So this 4th of July, don't worry too much. Take the day off, eat the fucking hot dogs, have a good time with your friends and family, or alone. Hell, if you're into that, hell, maybe you're just living in a micro apartment, have no friends and family at all. Microwave up some fucking hot dogs or some shit like that. You can pretend it's a barbecue grill. It's still a hot dog. The right ingredients, you can still make it real tasty. Trust me. I've got an idea for you, and I've done this many times before. Take 2 hot dogs and some bread. Toast off the bread. You want to toast it first. Now, you can cook the hot dogs any goddamn way you want. Now slice them down the middle and layer them on the bread. And then you add whatever condiments you want. Maybe it's onions, maybe it's ketchup, goat cheese, chili, whatever the fuck it happens to be. Doesn't really matter. Now you've made a hot dog sandwich. I have had these many, many times. And trust me, at least to my opinion, they are delicious. The founding fathers would be pleased. I guarantee that George Washington would have gladly eaten a hot dog sandwich had they existed at the time. And then he would have said, damn, this is tasty. You best bring me another. I'm going to run you through with my fucking saber. So, get to it. Happy 4th of July, everyone. That's about all. Peace out.